The US and China have struck a deal, and soybean markets have reacted fast. Prices rallied nearly 75 cents before showing signs of correction. But what's really behind this agreement, and how credible are those big purchase figures we've been hearing about? I'm Johanna Bota, and joining us today to unpack the headlines and what it all means for grains and oilseeds going forward is Bertrand Oesterle, VP of Clearing and Execution Sales at StoneX. Welcome, Bertrand.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us today. So we finally have a deal, and it sent November soybeans up 75 cents before the market corrected itself. Can you walk us through the ins and outs of the deal and what it did to the market?
So the 75 cents are over a period of 10 days. So it's not just from the deal, but it's from the moment that Bessent said at the weekend 10 days ago that there is a framework for a deal. And that got consolidated through the deal. The deal is basically over a few days. So if we go back in time a little bit, last Wednesday we were talking about the Chinese saying that they had bought 180,000 tons of US soybean just prior to the Xi-Trump meeting. Then on the Thursday, after we had spoken, the meeting took place and Trump came out saying China will start buying immediately and they will buy massive amounts. But in those two statements, there was no actual figure. So the market started to correct, thinking it's just a statement, there's no commitment. And then all started to move again once Bessent came up with some real figures. So Bessent stated that China will buy 12 million tons of US soybean for this year, then 25 million tons for the next 3 years, 2026, 27, 28. And also, Bessent stated that other Asian countries will buy up to 19 million tons of US soybean.
Do those numbers actually sound realistic to you? How did our clients react to this announcement? And has China actually confirmed any of it?
So first of all, on China has confirmed a lot of the elements that Trump has spoken about in terms of there's a truce for a year. The fees on US vessels are put away for a year. Rare earth is back on the board for a year. The restrictions in terms of trade are away for a year. The easing of tensions are also for a year. So everything is for a year, but there's been no firm commitment from China on soybean so far. It's only today that China has started to speak, to say that they've met the US Agricultural Ministry, that they've confirmed that the US is an important agricultural partner. And they've also said that by the 10th of November, they're going to look at the 15% tax they've got on US agricultural products and see if they take them away or reduce them. So it's only now that we're starting to get some reaction from China, but there's still no firm figure. So that's the first element. The second element is the way our clients have looked at the 12 million ton announcement from Bessent for this year. So it's 12 million tons for 2025. But is it for the full year or is it for November, December? If it's 12 million tons for November, December, it's a decent figure, but it needs to happen quick. If it's 12 million tons for the year, then 5.9 million tons have already occurred in terms of January to October exports so far. So it's only half of it, it's 6.1 million tons left. So the market, and especially producers, have been slightly disappointed by that 12 million ton figure for 2025, saying that last year it was 27 million tons. So 12 compared to 27, it's only 55%. And if it is 12 for the next 2 months, then it's a total of 17.9. It's still 30% less. So in that sense, a disappointment. Then people have reacted also about the 25 million tons for the next 3 years per year. And some feel that it is better than nothing. It's at least not zero. And others have said it's just back to normal in the sense that last year it was 27 million tons. Next 3 years, it's only going to be 25 million tons. It's actually putting a ceiling rather than a floor, and it's nothing beyond what was already there. So it's just back to normal. So somehow a bit of a disappointment from that figure. Then when we look at the rest of Asia, the 19 million tons, it becomes interesting because people say, what is the time frame? Is it like the Chinese deal where it's 1 million ton now, 666, or is it 19 million tons next year? So is it going to be 25 million tons of Chinese buying and 19 million tons of other Asian countries buying next year. It's a bit confused. And it would mean potentially 44 million tons. If it is the case, it's very close to the target from the USDA for the year. That could be very bullish, but we don't know the ins and outs of exactly how it's going to play out. And then we need to look at what China has done. So we know that China has bought 180,000 tons of US soybean pre-Xi Trump meeting. That made Chicago rally. But the physical world is also telling us that it caused the Brazilian basis to fall, and soybean importers from China jumped in to book 20 cargoes of Brazilian soybean.
Right.
If they're all 60,000 tons, that's 1.2 million tons. So it goes back to people being a bit dubious, saying China will do what it's ever done, buy the cheapest available.
Right.
And if it is a process of buying the cheapest, then we have a momentum at present on the upside on headline, but if it is back to having to be competitive, some people fear that the US and the Brazilians will have to compete against each other and the prices will have to come down once again.
So in your view, the headline is what drove the initial rally, but the market is not correcting itself because China actually hasn't confirmed anything yet.
I would say yes. I mean, for the upside, the headline is basically Bessent screaming out, "I'm a survivor."
You wanted to say that for a long time.
I wanted to, yes, indeed. But the downside is a bit more complex. Yes, we need to get confirmation from China that there is a hard commitment. But there's also been other pieces of news this week that have somehow deflated the rally from time to time. Those pieces of news are the fact that the US are still harvesting quite quickly. The soybean area is 91% harvested. Then we had a report from StoneX stating that the Mercosur production should be around 242.3 million tons compared to 240.4 the previous year. And that's despite a fall in area of about 0.4%. And the other bit is the technicals. The RSI on soybean has reached 83%. It's currently around 77%. It's really high. It needs to breathe. Technically, it needs to have a correction. But some people are saying, who cares about the technicals when it's all about political decisions?
Right. Well, so what do you think then it would take for China to follow through on this soybean deal?
I think that's the very interesting question. And I think that's the main point is the Brazilian crop. We've had some very interesting updates from AgRural this week. I've been telling you for the past few weeks that the planting in Brazil was very fast, very much ahead of last year. Suddenly, all this has stalled. The rains have been less regular, and AgRural told us this week that soybean is 47% planted so far, below last year's pace of 54%. So we started extremely quickly. The rains are not there anymore. We're slowing in planting, and in a way, it gives China all the golden cards in its hands. They have a choice to look at what's going to happen with Brazil. If Brazil is a good crop, it will be looking at who's the cheapest. If Brazil suddenly has a La Nina issue, has planting issues or slowness, and if it starts affecting the crop, then we could see China say, okay, we have our joker card, which means we can buy US now and provide a firm commitment.
So then do you think that this is really a win for the US, or are there other implications?
So it is a win as long as China commits.
Right.
But there are other implications, and the other implications continue on what we've been talking about for the past 8 months or so. Trump has been alienating the entire planet with his tantrums and his tariffs. And this week has not been any different. We've seen the rest of the world trying to say, we are looking to minimize the impact of Trump policies. So we've seen, for example, this week, China and the EU talking about a free trade agreement. That's brand new. So we're going to have to follow what that means. Then the Canadians have also spoken, saying that they've met with China. There's been some success and some failures. So the Carney-Xi meeting came out to nothing, in the sense that nothing was decided. But Carney said that he would go to China. And since then, the Agricultural Ministry from Canada has met the customs officials from China, and they are saying that they are talking about agricultural products. And beyond that, Carney has said that he is looking to continue conversation with the US, but at the same time, he said himself that they are moving fast forward to minimize the dependency on the US. And we've seen, for example, the talk of a deal between Canada and Pakistan to get canola to Pakistan.
So
And sorry,
go ahead.
And beyond that, we also had some news from Russia. It's been something that's been in the talks for about 2 years, but it's been put again on the table this week. Russia is talking of a platform for the BRICS countries to be able to trade agricultural products outside of the dollar, and that could be done through a Dubai DMCC exchange, and that's going to be very interesting to follow up. I mean, it could be months, if not years away, but it is still that desire from the BRICS to get away from US control.
Right. We're also actually hearing of talk that China wants to buy US wheat. Do you think this is a real rumor or just the usual tactics?
So that came up on Monday with Bloomberg stating that China is in the market to look for some 240 to 500,000 tons of US wheat. Now, we haven't had, again, a firm confirmation from China. And what we've heard from our US colleagues is that something has been bought. We don't know how much. And the indication would be that it is SRW wheat, so soft red winter wheat, out of the Gulf. So that's what we've heard from the physical world so far. Now, the market has been very sarcastic about this. Why? Because they said China bought 180,000 tons of US wheat, and then the basis fell in Brazil. They bought 1.2 million tons of US soybean. Are they playing the same game in wheat? Are they saying, are we going to buy a trickle of US wheat to get other origins to see their basis fall and buy other origins? So people are saying, are we about to hear an announcement that China has bought some Argentine or Australian or French wheat? So for the moment, we don't know, but it is interesting that for the moment, the talk is China is in the market, reported by Bloomberg, but we don't have any firm amount confirmed.
Okay, are there any other developments in wheat that are worth noting?
So wheat in the US is 91% planted. In the Ukraine, it's about 90% planted, so some good progress there as well. In terms of exports, the US exports have been reported to be quite brisk, some 11.8 million tons compared to 9.8 million tons last year at the same time. So if we think that there's 24.5 million tons of exports this year, we're already 48% through. At the same time, the Russian exports have been once again confirmed to be slower than last year, but there's a twist. So if we look at the first 4 months, it's some 15.1 million tons of exports, which is 25% slower than at the same time last year. But the October exports have picked up some 5.1 million tons, which is 18% more than last year. And so it has been very interesting because last week or the week before I was telling you that Russia was talking of only a Feb to June export quota in grains of about 11 million tons. That has been changed to 20 million tons on suggestion from the Grain Union, which would make sense because it means that if you started slowly to export, you need to catch up for the end of the season. Right. Now, the interesting bit is that France is looking at Russia exporting not necessarily to North Africa, but to other destinations. So France is looking at a pickup from Russia, but away from its target markets. So they are somehow relieved that Russia is exporting elsewhere. But unfortunately, France is switching one competing exporter for another, in the sense that Argentina is still very present. We still hear from the physical world that Morocco is looking at Argentine quotes. Now, the difficulty is that Argentina has had some frost issues in the southern parts, and the crop so far is 9% harvested. In terms of other developments, what else could I think of? Yes, the Ukrainian exports are a bit slower than last year, and you were asking just now about Paris. Paris has been interesting as well because the December contract has gone up. We touched 195 this morning. It's gone up because Chicago's gone up, but the DEC March is still taking a breather. We traded back down to minus 450, and some people are saying that if in the eventuality that China doesn't buy just US wheat but other origins, France needs to be cheaper as well. And when people look at a running December but a falling DEC March, they're saying that it is not actually a bullish sign.
Okay. And before we wrap up, because we have to touch on corn, what should we be watching there? So
corn in the US is about 83% harvested. We had a survey yesterday from our US colleagues saying that the yields would be 186 BPA, bushel per acre. That's up from 185.9 last month. The interesting bit, and it applies also for soybean, for wheat and for corn, we're going to have a USDA report for the month on the 14th of November. It will be a WASD report. So the government is still in shutdown, but the USDA will produce a WASD report. So we're going to be able to finally get some data to verify the private analyst estimates. And to finish on South America, the corn planting in Brazil is about 60% completed for the first crop, and for Argentina it's about 35% completed.
Bertrand, thank you so much for all your insights, and thank you for watching. For more financial content, please like and subscribe to our channel.